Everyone, welcome to another edition of the Bolt City podcast, talking Charger football with you. As this is kind of a dead period right now around the NFL, but there's always NFL news. It's amazing. 365. We say it all the time. There's something to talk about, a lot to talk about today. We're going to start right off, guys, with a guest, and of course, it's Daniel Wade, host of Locked On Chargers podcast. He's been doing it for a number of years, and kind of a different perspective. I think right now it's perfect time to bring Daniel on, guys, for the fact I think people are tired of, I know with me at least, they negative with Joey Bosa. And they say, guys, you're too negative on this. And the team's not that bad. And, you know, there's certain guys are positive. And Daniel, just to give you a heads up, I think I'm the one that upsets people the most. I think guys are like, hey, this team is going to the Super Bowl. I'm not saying this isn't a Super Bowl team, but I want to ask you right off the bat, expectations for this team in 2022, 2023, 2022 obviously was a disappointment. Right. And looking at what the Chargers have, being in a division with the best team in the NFL, what should we expect?
That's a great question. So I guess like Dave is just the deep, dirty voice in the back of most Chargers fans' heads that they have to try to keep pushing back there and pretend like things are going to be all right. You know, I think we've all been there. Man, it's hard. Like, I mean, I think for me, the biggest thing is like it feels like it has to be a deep playoff run type of a season for this team. I mean, do they have the pieces for it? It's so hard because they're basically running it back with the guys they had last year, right? I mean, you're looking at big offseason additions. You have Eric Kendricks on the defense, which is nice, right? I like Eric Kendricks, but it was a bad defense. He's not going to be the savior for your entire defense, right? And then offensively, I think Kellen Moore is the guy that you're looking at to get the biggest addition because besides that, all you brought in were draft picks, and you just never know how much you're going to be able to count on those guys as a rookie, right? Let alone 2 or 3 years down the road. So I think for the Chargers, the expectations with that dude, Justin Herbert, as your quarterback, like playoffs were the bare minimum, but like I think we saw last year, if your expectations are just playoffs, you can still be very upset about it. So, I mean, I think it has to be, AFC Championship game should be their expectations with that dude on as their quarterback, and given this current salary dump that they have in 2024 coming up. Like, this is a window right here. This is the last kind of chance for this core.
We always say that the worst place to be is in the middle, because if you're a bad team, you get a great draft pick. If you're a really good team, you're probably going deep in the playoffs. It seems like the Chargers always get the 21st pick in the draft, somewhere kind of in the middle. Do you think the Chargers have done enough to not be in the middle? You just said, Eric Kendricks isn't going to save the defense. To me, the defensive line is still a huge issue.
Yeah.
Would you say that's still the biggest issue to you too?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have my reservations just about giving Alohi Gilman the starting safety spot next to Derwin James. I was hoping they'd bring in a vet like John Johnson, who was with Staley in 2020 and maybe hasn't, lived up to the hype the last couple of seasons, but would still be the best safety that Derwin James has ever played next to, right? And I was hoping for something like that, like when your next safety onto the field is JT Woods, who might be the worst tackler I've seen at the NFL level based on, the very, very small sample size, admittedly, that we saw from him last year. But, like, the defensive line, there weren't any additions outside of a 6th-round pick in Scott Matlock, who, I love the man because he came in and said, like, I'm trying to take another man's job. I'm here to, snatch souls, which you don't hear a lot of 6th-round rookies saying. Love that. But, like, Sebastian Joseph-Day was one of the worst pass rushers in the NFL last year. I thought bringing back Morgan Fox was gigantic as far as the pass rush goes, and having someone, being what Jerry Tillery was kind of supposed to be in the middle. But as far as run defense, it's the defensive line, and much more than that, like the perimeter tackling for the Chargers was god-awful last year. Like most of those big runs, I think it was 6 out of 7 games they allowed a 40-plus yard run, which is like historically bad. Like a lot of that comes from, Asante Samuel Jr. The last play anyone remembers from that Jacksonville Jaguars game, right? 4th and 1, they run right at him. He misses the tackle, it breaks. They end up getting in field goal range, and it's game over for the most part. So, like, it starts with the defensive line. I think that's still a big issue for me. A lot of prove-it stuff having to go on in there, especially with Austin Johnson coming back from a torn ACL. You have your rookie from last year, Otito Abonia, coming back from a ruptured patella tendon. Like, I don't know. It's a very deep group, but I think the top-end talent of that group is still very questionable.
We got Daniel Wade from the Locked On Chargers podcast here on Bolt City. It's funny when you bring up the Jaguars game, I'm still baffled about the jet sweep to Mike Bandy just coming across on 4th and 1. My guy. I've been live and die by him. We're going to meet him one day, take him out to dinner, have a good time. But I don't know if he was our guy in that moment. No. You mentioned the secondary. I yell at Josh and Dave about this all the time. and I'm standing by it. I think J.C. Jackson have a big comeback here. Like I think this time, I think it's going to be 10 times healthier than IFC ever was last year. There's a little bit of anger he has on him. He's one of the best corners in the league 2 years ago. So am I crazy? Are you confident as well that J.C. Jackson can have a big bounce back year in 2023 as Dave shakes his head because he's wrong?
Oh, sorry.
Man, I mean, it's so tough because, like, he wasn't, like, just bad. Like, he was, like, the worst corner in the league bad when he was out there last year. But, like, the thing is I was out there at training camp, and, like, the dude looked like a stud. Like, he was out there in training camp saying Justin Herbert doesn't want to throw to my side of the field during training camp, right? And, like, he was actually being that dude. But then you have, like, the weird ankle deformity growth thing that he had to get removed there. That wasn't an injury, but he had to take 2 weeks to come back from it. And, like, I don't know what that was, but, like, it didn't seem like he was ever really the same after that. And the only picture you have in your mind as a Chargers fan is this dude giving up a passer rating of like 156.3 last year. So, like, it's really, really tough. I will say, though, maybe I'm a sucker for it. Watching all the videos, like how hard this dude's been trying to come back, how much this dude's been grinding away. You can definitely see that he's not kind of been defeated by it. And I think that's a huge thing, especially with an injury that's that gnarly, because, like, this is a thing that's, retired people before trying to come back from. Like, I think that's huge. I think that the fit is still questionable unless we see them use him differently and do the things he did well in New England. And, like, Brandon Staley, that's kind of on you to a certain extent, right? Like, let him do what he's done. Let him be man-to-man. Let him go intercept balls. I think it's 17 interceptions in the 2 seasons leading up to his first year with the Chargers. So, like, it's a combination of things. Can he come back? I think, if he's ready for training camp, if he's there the whole time to kind of get his feet back under him, to get, acclimated to this Chargers defense where it never really felt like he fit in last year during the regular season. I mean, he got benched for Michael Davis. Michael Davis went on to play like the best corner that the Chargers have had in like a couple of years down the stretch. But at the time, I mean, it was pretty gnarly to see that dude getting paid that much, getting sat for that guy who was coming off of a season where he really struggled in Brandon Staley's defense. So I'd like to see it first, which is a terrible answer for right now, but I'm not fully bought in yet to the J.C. Jackson comeback. But I will say, like, for the Chargers to reach where they want to get to, for them to live up to their expectations, like, they need him to at least be 80% of that dude, right? The dude they thought they were signing when they first took him last year.
All right, so you mentioned Staley, and I want to mention Telesco in the same, conversation. Are those two guys on the hot seat?
I would say yes. Just because, like, I wouldn't have said Brandon Staley was on the hot seat last year, but then you saw how the final game went, right? So it's like, you never know what the season ending is going to look like. I mean, if you look at the Chargers historically, I mean, Anthony Lynn got 4 years, right? Mike McCoy got 4 years. So that's what kind of the standard is that they've set for themselves. But they also didn't have Justin Herbert all those years, right? Like, and I think Justin Herbert is the one that kind of puts your expectations at a level where, hey, 2 winning seasons in your first 2 years as an NFL head coach isn't good enough, right? And that's what he's battling against. And the other part of it is, for Brandon Staley, the defense hasn't been any good, right? Last year, you can point to injuries, and a lot more went wrong for them than the year in 2021, his first season, right, where they were even worse. But the defense hasn't been good. For Tom Telesco, I mean, I think I wrote like a 4-piece. This is what Tom Telesco has done in his tenure, like over the first like 8 or 9 years he was there. And I was like, you tell me if it's good enough, because like from where I'm sitting, it doesn't seem good enough. A lot of very flashy picks. Like, you have to get credit for getting Justin Herbert and Rashawn Slater and Derwin James and Joey Bosa and all these dudes. But, like, if you look at the Chiefs, right, last season, you look at the Chiefs drafts, they had 12 of the 15 players they had drafted played at least like 296 snaps for them last season, right? And if you look at the Chargers, it's very boom or bust. Like, you get a Desmond King every once in a while, right? You get a Keenan Allen every once in a while, or someone like that. Jamari Sawyer, another good example. But you're not getting enough contributions out of enough of those guys. So I think they're probably tied together. If you're getting a new general manager, you probably want to let them have their choice at head coach. And if you are going to fire your head coach, I don't know if you let Tom Telesco hire another one, right? Hire his 4th head coach since he's been general manager. It seems like, for me, if this season goes terribly wrong, if they get, 7 wins, 6-7 wins this season, I think they're both gone.
So everybody knows that the NFL is an offensive game now. It's spread offenses, throwing the ball over the field. The Chargers still have a defensive head coach. You look at a team like the Chiefs with Andy Reid, they're creative. Kellen Moore gets brought in. people talk about how you get better through the draft, through free agency. Bringing in an OC like Kellen Moore when you have Joe Lombardi, who doesn't understand that you have to go north and south and not east and west, drives me freaking nuts last season.
Oh, yeah.
I think to me that's a huge addition, bringing in a guy like Kellen Moore. If the Chargers want to get to the next level, I think you need a guy like that as your head coach. Do you think Kellen Moore is the right guy as an OC now, and could you see him being the head coach in the future?
Man, I've gotten this question many times. Like, if you're looking for like historical context for that happening, it's hard to find it, right? As far as like the team being bad enough to fire their head coach, but the offense being good enough to want that guy to be the head coach, right? I think that's the tough part of it, because it's like, if Brandon Staley is that bad, like if the Chargers are bad enough for them to fire Brandon Staley this year, it's hard to imagine they're setting all sorts of records, because if your offense is good enough, it's going to keep you in games always, right? Maybe they have a lot of tough breaks or something, but as far as Kellen Moore himself goes, I had Matt Williamson. He used to work at ESPN. He's now a Locked On NFL insider. But he basically, when I asked him about Kellen Moore, was like, well, he's not Joe Lombardi. That was basically like his biggest kind of feather in the cap, was just like, he's not Joe Lombardi. And I remember listening to the Athletic Football Show with Robert Mays, and they were talking about like, with Joe Lombardi, it feels like you need perfection to get 7 yards. Whereas like, you have Justin Herbert, right? Like, you shouldn't have to be doing things 7 yards at a time. And the other thing that really drove me absolutely insane about Joe Lombardi, he lived for third downs. Like, it's nice when you have Justin Herbert. He can bail you out of a lot of terrible third down situations, and he's done it since he's been in the league. But, like, the Chargers led the NFL in third downs by, like, 13 third downs. I think it was 92-79 was the next closest team. And, like, no matter how good you are, even if you're hitting at a 60% clip on third down, if you're getting to that many third downs, it's going to end up just totally derailing your offense. And I think you saw what that offense could look like maximized by someone as good as Justin Herbert in 2021 when they were a top 5 offense. But as soon as you didn't have all those pieces and you're trying to run it 7 yards at a time with Michael Bandy, bless his heart, it looks totally different when it's Michael Bandy and DeAndre Carter out there, right? Jason Moore, who somehow is still around as like a practice squad, somehow gets on the roster kind of guy. So like, I love Kellen Moore because I think not just should he be more vertical, like what he did in Dallas that made him so successful with those big receivers is he found ways to get guys single matchups down the field. So when you have someone like Mike Williams, that's really, really enticing, right? That's really, really intriguing. When you have someone like Quentin Johnston, I think that's a really, really good fit. And like, I think the other thing that makes me feel so good about Quentin Johnston is that Kellen Moore had to sign off on it first, right? So I don't see the scenario in which he could turn into the Chargers head coach, just because I think if the offense is really that good, they're probably going to be a good enough team to where Brandon Staley doesn't get fired. At the same time, I think he's going to be literally a gigantic upgrade over Joe Lombardi, and I can't stress that part enough.
Yeah, I think we all got a common theme. It's like, when is the defensive genius of Staley going to come forward?
Oh,
and then it's like, yeah, and then it's like Moore is just, he's something new, right? You know, he's the new girl that walked in a bar after
he's proven, man. Like, he's proven.
He's
like
very
Joe Lombardi's only time he had ever been an offensive coordinator, he had Calvin Johnson and Matthew Stafford, right? And he flamed out in a year and a half under Jim Caldwell, who was like the best Lions coach of the last 40 years. So it's like the red flags were there. He was Brandon Staley's third choice after Mike McDaniel, who's now the head coach of the Dolphins, and Kevin O'Connell, who's the head coach of the Vikings. So he was option number 3 or 4. Kellen Moore, it seems like, once he became available, he was definitely option 1.
It's funny too, because I think he's a great coach. I think he'll be very, very good. But seeing him like try to pump up a locker room, I just think would be kind of funny. Just with the way he looks, I'm like, I think you take the back seat there, Kellen, and you let someone else give the pump up talk.
It's so wild that dude was a bad dude though in college, man. Like that dude went 50-3 at Boise State. Like, it's crazy to think that kind of like Herbert in that way, where it's like, this is a bad dude you never want to see on the football field, but by the way he's riling up a locker room, you would never know it.
Yeah, it doesn't need a chin strap either because he doesn't have a chin. So let's. You mentioned the rookies a little bit. We'll love to have Kellen Moore on, the legend himself. Love the guy. And you mentioned some of the rookies, man, Quentin Johnson, and we talked about this ad nauseum multiple times about like what rookies we kind of expect to kind of have like a big 2023. Kind of smack us in the face like Slayer did this past year. If you kind of had to guess right now who that would be, who would it be? Because I like Thule a lot. Led sacks last year in Pac-12. He's my guy. So I'm kind of curious of who do you got?
I think Thule's a great call because, like, and part of the reason I've been a little harsh on the Chargers by not adding another veteran edge depth is because, like, going into the draft, like, the Chargers didn't have a ton of super blatant holes, right? You end up signing Trey Pipkins, you fill your hole at right tackle, no matter kind of what you think about them, they weren't going to put premium resources into after they signed him to that, right? You get Morgan Fox back, but like, you didn't go in needing a lot of starters into the draft, but what you needed was kind of pseudo starters because of injuries to guys like Joey Bosa in the past and guys like Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. So to me, wide receiver and edge rusher were kind of pseudo starting spots the Chargers had to address because, like, if we're going based on last year, whoever that guy behind Joey Bosa is played 10 games, right? Or 12 games last year. Whoever that guy was behind Keenan Allen ended up playing a lot last season. So, like, I like Tuli a lot. I think Quentin Johnston's going to have the year we're going to talk about most from an impact standpoint, just because I think it's a sexier position. I don't necessarily see Tuli come in and getting, 9-10 sacks as a rookie, especially with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa right in front of him. This is my sleeper one, Deion Henley. Third-round pick linebacker, and it kind of goes back to the Kellen Moore, Joe Lombardi situation where it's like Deion Henley gets Kenneth Murray off the field, right? And I think at this point going into year 4 for Kenneth Murray, like, how long can you keep waiting for it all to click? If Deion Henley can find a way into that starting lineup during training camp, if he can find a way to make enough plays to be able to be considered for defensive snaps early, having that dude, who I think actually pairs very well with Eric Kendricks in the middle of that defense, and also gets Kenneth Murray off the field, like, I think that could have a huge impact. But I think the flashiest one, the guy's probably going to put the most numbers up, the guy that it's hard to imagine him not getting snaps this year, no matter if injuries happen or not, and because their wide receiver core has been so banged up, it's definitely Quentin Johnston.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, it seems like the way this Charger team has always gone, that it's next man up, especially at the wide receiver position. I want to ask you about Joey Bosa, because you bring up Bosa, you bring up Khalil Mack. Both those guys, when healthy in their prime, man, they're as good as you can ask for. The thing is, I believe Khalil Mack, the best days are gone, unfortunately. And with Bosa, I have such a frustration level with him, and it goes all the way through with not playing. I mean, when he came back in December, man, I called it on the show as soon as the injury. If the Chargers have a chance for the playoffs, you're going to see Joey Bosa. If they didn't have a chance, you are not going to see Joey Bosa. There aren't too many times that I've been in an NFL locker room where I seem to go in there and been around a player who really couldn't care less whether he played or not, always has a bad attitude. It just gets old. And people write to all the time and say, man, you're too tough on Joey. I think the thing that really bothers me about Joey is that he has a brother in the league that is one of the best players in the NFL. And I feel like we got the bad brother. Like I say on the show all the time, we're going to see Joey in Canton, Ohio. He's just going to be sitting front row clapping for his brother when he goes in the Hall of Fame. And so enough with the Joey bashing. I'm asking you from obviously the fans that are want to follow this team and want to see them do well. I want to see Joey do well. I'm just frustrated with them.
Sure.
What should we expect from Joey Bosa?
Man, I think the tough part about that is, like, what we heard when he was gone was that this is something that he's been dealing with for multiple seasons, right? I mean, people talking about his, groin as like a rubber band ball that snapped. Like, obviously, if you were dealing with that and that was hampering you during your offseason program, right, and you're not able to fully ramp up for an NFL season, I get it. Like, that would be a huge hindrance. I think the part that is tough about it is, like, it seemed like he kind of got nicked up as soon as he came back in the game against the Rams last year. And like, it feels like it's hard to get your hopes up for Joey. I mean, I think if you're looking for the positives, like, even in 5 games last year, he had the best pass rush win rate in the NFL. Like, he beats the dude in front of him more often than anyone else that's rushing the quarterback at his position. And I think that part of it's still in there. But I do think, like, winning covers up a lot of things, right? But like, when you're losing, when you have someone doing that, like when you're so publicly out there being a bad spot in a game that, is historically bad, like, that's always going to look super bad for you. And it's always, I think, going to put the emphasis on what you do that next season. The other part of it is like, that dude over 2024 and 2025 is going to be owed, I think, $70 million from the Chargers. It's like a $36 million cap hit 24, $32 million cap hit in 2025. So, like, I do think, we talked about it the other day, like, I do think this is a prove it year for Joey Bosa, because I just think that unless you're actually, he doesn't need to have 17 sacks, right? Like, I would love to see it. He's only had 12 and a half is the most he's ever had. You don't have to do that, right, to be considered a great or an elite edge rusher in this league. But like, what you do have to be able to do is be out there, be productive, and at least be opening up opportunities for the rest of the guys and elevating the other players around him. And like, I just think that we haven't seen that in a couple of seasons from him. I think he has all the talent in the world. I think he can come out this year easily and get 13 sacks if he plays 17 games, but that's a huge if. And like, I think that's why you see the Tooley pick, right? Because it's like, you have to ensure yourself. You have to find the next option, the heir to the throne, when in 2024, both of those dudes within him and Khalil Mack both have $32+ million cap hits. So like, feels like something kind of has to go there. It feels like they're not going to be able to keep all these guys together in 2024. But like, I don't know how you can get your hopes up for a Joey Bosa 15.5 sack season at this point. Like, my co-host, me and him are the opposite on that too. Like, you know, every time we talk about him, it's like he thinks he could do it. And I think he could too, but it's like, I'm more, how do I get myself fully, you know, ramped up on that? Like, it's just, I kind of have to see it. Like, he is great. When he's out there, he's still very good. But I do think the losing plus the attitude plus the off-field stuff, it's like, hey, man, it's becoming too much of a headache, and you're not actually out there performing where you're one of the guys you want to put up with the headache for.
Daniel, going into a season, you never know who's going to drop off and who's going to break out. You brought up Michael Davis's name last year. He had a really good season because J.C. Jackson, guy we expected a lot from, you know, didn't live up to the hype.
Yeah.
Is there a guy this year you'd expect to have a breakout season, maybe like Drew Tranquil had last year?
Ooh, yeah, that's a good question because I think we saw it with Drew Tranquil. I think you could even say we saw a little bit more with Kazir White the year before that, right? Like, I think if I'm talking about a breakout year this season, I think it's probably Asante Samuel Jr. And it's weird because he's a breakout guy, and he's also like, I don't know if he's even going to be starting potentially with the J.C. Jackson situation, right? Like, if J.C. Jackson and Michael Davis are your outside corners, you're trying to move Asante Samuel Jr. into the slot. We'll have to see how that shakes out, right? But like, if you're looking at, I think the last game of the season, you saw the good and the bad of Asante Samuel Jr. And I try to tell people that because everyone's like, hey, 3 interceptions, this dude's about to go off in 2023. And I have my reservations about it because I think that game showed exactly why, or him as a player, where he's at this point in his career, right? If he can be consistent and be that 3 interception guy and be the guy who's in the right spot, I mean, the ball skills are undeniable. Like, when the ball gets near that dude, he will come away with it. He will find a way to break it up, and that's great to see. But like we talked about before, 4th and 1, game on the line against Jacksonville, right? They ran right at him, and they got a first down. They won that game that way. If you think back in that game as well, he had the blown coverage on the touchdown that was like a 36-yard touchdown that was part of that comeback. So, like, I think you saw the full Asante Samuel Jr. package. That being said, like, if he's Marcus Peters, how do you feel about it, right? Like, a dude who could come away with like 6, 7 interceptions. He's never going to be the best tackler. I don't know. Like, I think you probably would take that to a certain extent just to have that kind of takeaway ability. But like, to see Asante Samuel Jr. have, 6, 7 interceptions wouldn't surprise me this year at all, just having watched him, his whole career at this point. So I think breakout, he would be one. I think the ones on offense are a lot less sexy, just because it's like, yeah, maybe a lineman has a breakout season. Like, maybe it's Isaiah Spiller or Josh Kelly. But I think the hard thing is like, those rules aren't determined yet, right? So like, when training camp happens, we'll know who has an edge at RB2, right? We'll know if Quentin Johnston's fully wide receiver 3 and stuff at that point. And I think we'll have a little bit better of a picture of it. I'd say Asante Samuel Jr. has a good chance at it. Alohi Gilman is the one where it's like, he's super volatile. He was like that at Notre Dame too, where like he was always around the ball. He was always making plays, but like he's small, right? He would kind of run himself out of position at times, but like, when the Chargers were playing their best during that 4-game streak, they were playing against terrible quarterbacks, which you have to remember, right? But they also gave up 11 points a game over 4 games. He was one of their best players. Like, he is a dog. Like, if you go back and look, 4th and 1 against the Colts last year, we had Braden Fehoko on our show, and he actually said that the center, 4th and 1, I think that was the Nick Foles game, had a little bit of a tell, right? So they knew when they were going to snap it. So they got like a good jump on it. But you see Alohi Gilman jump over the pile, right? And then pulling Nick Foles back from behind to make sure he didn't get it. Hard not to root for a dude like that. And like, I think the offseason kind of told you how they felt about where they're at safety. So it feels like they have full faith in him. I'm excited to see what he does while still being nervous.
Daniel Wade from Locked On Chargers. I have one last question for you.
Sure.
I'm going offbeat. I'm a big UFC fan. I saw that you also write for UFC Knockout. Now I have a good and/or for you.
Okay.
Would you rather see Volk versus Islam Part 2 or John Jones versus Nagano?
Man, that's tough. I mean, I think
Yeah.
Volk could beat Islam. Like, I think if they
Same.
ran it back,
Yeah.
like I think he could pull that off. I mean, I think in a loss he somehow became one of the best pound for pound fighters, or at least kind of given that the right credit. But I mean, Ngannou and Jones, man, that's man. I guess it depends like what version of Ngannou I'm gonna get, right? Like, I think the reason I might go Volk versus Islam is I know those dudes are at it right now. Like, Volk's about to take on Yair Rodriguez, and we're gonna see a gnarly fight there, right? And like he's staying active, like. Francis Ngannou, we haven't seen in a long time. The last time we saw him, he was laying on top of Cirogan, right, for the last 3 rounds to try to pull that off. Like, I have no interest in watching Francis Ngannou try to lay on John Jones, even though I don't think he'd be able to. So I think for that reason, I'm going to go Volk versus Islam.
Especially him talking trash, like punch him in his face. Dude, that was my favorite thing. I love Volk.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Volk guy. Yeah.
Oh, I'm a big Volk guy, dude. I mean, I thought Brian Ortega had him in that guillotine for sure. Like, I still don't.
Yeah.
I guess it's just because he doesn't have a neck. But like, once the like feet start doing the little flutter thing, the little panic flutter, I'm like, oh, he's done, dude. Like, he's tapping out for sure. He's just going out, But hey, thanks for shouting that out for sure. I mean, very, very cool. I love watching people, gladiator sport, definitely.
Oh yeah,
Daniel, thank you so much for your time, man. We really appreciate it. That was awesome. It was a pleasure to meet you, and great stuff.
Luke, truly, anytime. I'm busy as hell, but like, hey, you guys need something, you have a week in mind, let me know, guys. I got you.
Thank you very much. That's Daniel Wade right there from the Locked On Chargers podcast. Fantastic stuff. Great insight right there from him as well. So it was nice really to hear from a different voice. As far as right at the beginning, I want to go back to something we talked about, the JC Jackson. Now, Mario, do you honestly believe that he's going to bounce back to the player that the Chargers thought they were getting? Or do you think this is going to be one of those where the Chargers are going to say, this might be the worst free agent signing we ever had outside of David Boston?
No, I really do. I think it's a bounce back. I think it's a get right for him. I don't think he was
you're right, man.
Yeah. I just don't think he was ever truly healthy last year. I think he rushed a lot of things. I think he saw the week 2 against a rival that Super Bowl contender and thought, if we're going to be honest, is thinking, I can be the hero. I can be a hero in this game. I can be the hero in this matchup and kind of really kick off my Charger career here. I just think it was all rushed. And then now this year, it's a long time to recover, and it's a long time to get kind of your mind right, set your goals, and get running, and then hit the field sprinting. So I'm a big believer in JC Jackson, and I'm a big believer in Michael Davis also continues what he ended with last year. So I'm high on this secondary with Davis and Jackson, man. I'm not going to be low on them, not at all.
I like the idea of Asante Samuel being the slot corner. If JC Jackson's the guy that we expect him to be. I think JC Jackson's definitely Trayvon Diggs, right? Home run or strike out. He just happened to strike out almost every time last year. So JC Jackson to me should be better. I think he was just trying to make the big play too often. I don't think he was healthy, like Mario said. I'd expect him to not be the best corner in the NFL, but be the best corner on the Chargers. And that's what he was signed there to do, be the best corner on the Chargers. So I'd expect that 100%.
See, I think he was signed, honestly, to be both the best corner in the NFL and the best corner on the Chargers. I mean, not only was he, he's supposed to be the shutdown guy. And it was embarrassing and amazing to see what we saw. And look, it wasn't us wearing the uniform. I mean, that's him. I mean, he has to be embarrassed too. And we talk about this all the time. The guys with the biggest egos on a football field are the wide receivers and the cornerbacks. And man, it had to be awful for him. And then, of course, then the injury happens. You can't even redeem yourself as quickly as you can and wait for the next game to show everybody why you got the big money and why you're the one that's talked about and prove that Bill Belichick and the Patriots made a mistake. It was so unbelievably bad that you have to assume this cannot be what the Chargers sign up for, or what he signed up for either. I mean, the thing is, he still walks away with a truck full of money. Chargers walk away embarrassed and losing games. It has to be better than what it was. And I tell you, man, I tip my hat to Bill Belichick even more. If he is a bust, boy, he called it. I mean, by saying, hey, there's the door right there. If you think you could do better than the Patriots, see you later and go to Los Angeles. And what a disaster.
The whole thing with JC Jackson, sorry, Mario, the whole thing with JC Jackson last year was weird with him going back to Boston and the legal trouble he had. Just it sounded like his head was just all over the place. And Bill Belichick to me is a great call, because if you look at how many great corners he's had over the last 15 years, that is the most stacked position by one team. You'd probably say out of any team in the last 15 years. He's had so many Pro Bowl corners, including the 2 rookies last year. I don't know if they made the Pro Bowl, but nobody cares about the Pro Bowl. The 2 rookie corners last year that were so great. he's like the cornerback whisperer. And Stephon Gilmore never got burnt as a Patriot, and he gets burnt all the time when he's not on the Patriots. So it makes me wonder if when guys leave the Patriots, are they just not good corners anymore?
Tell you what he's not good at doing, finding a new OC. We're gonna strike against both for that one. Piss poor, buddy. Come on, Billy boy.
Hey, one of the big stories that we continue to talk about in the NFL, there's a couple things that have gone through, and I don't think we're at the end of it yet. And it's players that are gambling, and you're hearing more and more that, you know, the gambling side of things in the NFL. We talked about this a few weeks ago, and I think we all said, boy, if you're willing to gamble and risk it, you better be gambling like the size of how much money it would take you to make, you know, what you'd make in the NFL for 4 or 5 years to say, yeah, I might be embarrassed that I got kicked out of the league, but boy, I won a ton of money. Dude, guys are getting right now suspended for $20 and $25 bets. I mean, what the hell is going on, especially after what you saw what happened with Calvin Ridley? How does this even happen to one player in the NFL, let alone multiple players in the NFL?
Mario, you got to take this over. I know you're strong on this topic.
The only thing I'll say is don't do it. But at least Isaiah Rodgers had the balls to like put $1,000 on it. At least you're getting something in return. At least you're gonna, at least make it worth it a little bit. But that being said, besides the point, I saw a lot of like people. This is what pissed me off. Is there's a lot of people today going like, this is because gambling's legal. This is because it's never been easier to gamble. It's because, you know, the NFL's allowing it. They're having these partnerships. Every one of those people that have that idea, you can shut up and shove it up your ass, because I just don't think you're intelligent at all. Like, I think you're forgetting something very, very big. And that's gambling's always been in sports, and there's been incidents all through sports. And also, yes, it is easiest to get on your phone and to go gamble on any sports gambling app, but it's also the easiest to find your ass and to actually crack down on who's gambling, where you're gambling, and where you're gambling at. That's how these guys got caught, because everyone knows where you're at, where you're gambling. It's not the cousin Vinny on the corner. You're going to go shave some points off so the Colts can cover this game. It's not like that anymore. And that's the part that kind of pisses me off. Look, this was going to happen. Gambling's always been in sports. If you don't think it's been in sports, go back to 1919 when the Chicago Blackhawks threw the World Series. Go back to 1951 with 32 college basketball players.
The Black Sox.
Yeah,
Sox.
Black Sox.
Not the hockey team.
Or the other
That's
thing.
the Blackhawks?
Yeah.
All right, well, Black Sox, Blackhawks, they're in the hole. All right,
Hey,
so
just
32
be careful.
college
It's kinda
basketball
slippery.
players. Yeah, look, 32 college basketball players from 7 schools around the country in 1951 were also caught in a mafia-run point-shaving scheme. Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame or not. Guy's a scumbag. In 1989, he was banned for life in the MLB for betting on games. Tim Donaghy, whatever, he's a bodity sucksity. 2007, an NBA ref that got caught betting on games and fed information to people to bet on the game. And then in your own freaking backyard, to anyone that's listening to this that thinks, again, that this just came upon because gambling is something illegal now. San Diego basketball in 2011, the former assistant coach, Thaddeus Brown, convinced the point guard, Brandon Johnson, to shave points for up to $10,000 per game. It's always happened. They're coming down on the issue. It's a big, big, big issue. And they're saying if you do it, you're screwed. Bye 1 year. Could be longer for some of these players. So everyone that's saying, oh, this is such an issue. Look, hammer's coming down. I don't expect it to happen again. It couldn't be easier to get caught. Couldn't it be easier to do it? Couldn't it easier to be caught? That's just how it's done. Everyone can shut up and gamble.
Okay. A lot to unpack there.
A lot.
Yeah, you go. You go, Dave.
All right. I'm just going to point out the issue with gambling, okay? And then I'll let Josh give his opinion on it. So here's the deal. There's so many people out there still. If there's ever a dead day in sports and you want to say, hey, what do we do? There's nothing to talk about. Should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame? That's always that evergreen topic. And then phone lines light up like crazy. It's lazy. Yeah, it's lazy as hell. So here's the way it works. And people say, well, look, I'm a Pete Rose fan, and Pete Rose only gambled on his teams to win. Well, this is what happens when your team loses, and then they lose again, and they lose again. And Pete now all of a sudden, we'll just use Pete's name. Pete owes $100,000, and Pete doesn't want to pay the $100,000. Well, you know what, Pete, you don't have to pay us back the $100,000. But what you will do, you will lose the next game, and you're going to let us know the game you're going to pick for your team to lose, so we can all make our money back and get not only the $100,000, but we're going to make more off of that. When guys start tanking games on purpose, and that's what pro sports and college sports are most worried about, because as a fan base, all you're thinking about is wins and losses, and the only numbers you really care about is that scoreboard. You can't be thinking there's a referee or a player on the field that's determining the outcome of the game. And once that happens, where they think that games are fixed, it's over. That's the end of football. That's the end of basketball. That's the end of baseball. If games are fixed before the game even starts, then guess what? There's no reason to watch sports anymore. What's the point? It's all supposed to be a competition. You do your best. I do my best, and see what that scoreboard says.
Yeah, you see a lot of people on social media today saying, well, he bet for his team, talking about Isaiah Rodgers. Wrong is wrong. It doesn't matter if you bet against the team or for his team. You're not supposed to gamble. Don't do it. And I'm going to do something right now that I hate that people do. I'm going to talk about another subject that's not being talked about enough when you're talking about punishments. Can't talk. Tyreek Hill gets, allegedly charged for another assault in Miami, yet there's no suspension yet for him. It's not, done yet what actually happened. But how many times does a guy like Tyreek Hill need to beat up somebody before he gets suspended for a season? Why is it always guys that are gambling or things that are hurting the NFL instead of guys that are hurting other people? I think Tyreek Hill should be a topic that people are talking about more for being suspended. I think it's ridiculous.
I completely agree. It's again, it's a bad thing. You should be suspended. It should be harsh. You are affecting an organization, people's livelihoods, my wallet. It should be a thing. But you bring up a good point, Josh. If we're gonna do that, let's focus on the bigger things of the countless of times that have come up with domestic abuse that we have in the NFL. We can't ignore that. That's an issue that NFL doesn't come that hard on. Deshaun Watson. I mean, we've talked about it ad nauseum before. The guy's a scumbag. How many women did he have to berate, bother, or do, whatever? He gets accused of all these things. And yet, Buddy's starting for the Browns in 2023 this season, and he served a little bit of a suspension. It's just, I get it. Gambling is bad. I'm not going to belittle anything on the gambling. Gambling is bad. Shouldn't be allowed. Ban. Come down hard on him. But it's don't try to be, Jesus Christ if you have, a million sins. You know what I'm saying? I know he died for our sins, but, God was still a pretty good guy. Jesus was still a pretty good dude. He wasn't bothering people. That might have been a bad analogy, but praise
I know.
be.
Maybe.
Yeah. Praise be.
All right. Praise be. You do it once a show. You bring Jesus or the Holy Ghost or something into it once a show, correct?
He's one person, Dave.
I know it. I know it's coming in every single time. All right. Two things can be bad. All right. The Tyreek Hill thing is ridiculous. Allegedly punched a pregnant woman right in the stomach. The last thing is accused of basically trying to steal a guy's boat. He wanted to charter a boat, thought the guy was charging too much. So guess what? He beat the hell out of the guy. It's insane. I mean, what happens to Tyreek Hill? The thing that catches it right there is video. Once we see it, instead of just hearing about it, that's what happened to Ray Rice. Once you actually see it, video is the thing that obviously brings everyone to an end. But that's why Tyreek Hill's my least favorite guy in the NFL. Yeah, he's extremely talented, one of the best football players in the league. Bad guy. Adrian Peterson should never have been able to play in the NFL after what he did to his kid. It just, there are things over and over again happen in this. This is why people in the NFL are jumping on this gambling thing so quickly, because it's the one thing that will affect all 32 owners' pockets if guys continue to do it. And Tyreek Hill punching a woman or punching a guy who owns a boat, it's one person affected. But when it's 32 owners going, wait a second, I paid billions of dollars for this team and for these stadiums and TV rights and the money that's coming in, to say it all comes to an end because we have a few goofballs that are putting $25 down on a bet, or at max, let's say $1,000. There's no way we're getting rid of our $1 billion league. What does NFL bring in? Something like $50 billion a year? And all of a sudden we're all going to throw it away because we have guys that might be on the take. There's no way the NFL is going to go with that.
That's my question, though. You're always talking about protecting the shield, making the NFL in the best light possible. How is that putting the NFL in a better light? You're choosing finances over people beating the hell out of other people. Explain that to me.
It's always about
I don't
money.
understand where the
It's
NFL
always money.
I know it doesn't. It's always money. It drives me nuts. Don't get behind the whole mental health thing, that you care about other people's mental health when you have your own players beating the hell out of citizens. It's just so It's so backwards, man. I don't want to get into this anymore. I'm saying something I shouldn't. All right, let's go to another topic.
PJ
our favorite college football player growing up. We'll start with Dave because he's the oldest one here. Who's your favorite college football player growing up?
Actually, let me go last. Let me go last on this one. I got to think about it. Yeah, I'll tell you. I'll tell you right. The one that jumped right into my head, and I can't stand him as a person.
Can I guess?
Obviously, you'll never guess. Go ahead.
O.J. Simpson.
Dude,
Vinny
I literally
Testaverde.
want to cuss. I want to cuss you out right now, dude. I wasn't alive to watch O.J. Simpson, jerk.
I know that was a backhanded compliment.
Yeah,
in so many different ways.
I know you're trying to sit there and go old and a bad guy. Yeah, no, I wasn't alive to watch OJ. I'm not that old. Damn, Bart Starr. No, I never saw him play at Alabama. It wasn't it?
Sid
Your favorite
Luckman.
player is a bad person? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's a player of a team that I didn't like, but I was amazed by how good he
Bo
was.
Jackson.
The first player I ever saw. No, actually before Bo even a couple of years.
Herschel Walker.
Herschel Walker.
Knew it.
Yeah, Herschel Walker.
Nice.
When I watched Herschel Walker at Georgia, I couldn't believe what I was watching. He was the guy that number one, he was fast as can be. He was strong as could be. He was better than Derrick Henry. I mean, he was insane. And then you would see him, jump over guys, and all of a sudden he'd hurdle the whole defensive line, land on his feet, and keep running. Yeah, for me, it was Herschel Walker was the one that stood out when I was a kid, where I told my mom, if we can find a 34 Bulldogs jersey, go ahead and buy it. I was amazed. I just thought it was cool as could be. When you're out in the backyard and you're playing football with your friends, man, we're all Herschel Walker. We just never seen anything like it.
Was he better than Bo?
Ooh.
I would have said at the time, yeah, I would have said better than Bo. I will say this. You never asked me this question. Bo Jackson's the best pro football player I have ever seen in my life, and it's not even close. And people go, oh, you're crazy, Tom Brady. I understand that. Jerry Rice, all that. Bo played for a little bit of time, but if you look at his numbers, he still averages more yards per carry than anyone else. He was so good that Marcus Allen, who's a Hall of Famer, was great, that when Bo stopped playing baseball, he would join the Raider backfield, and Marcus was now a blocking back. He had to play fullback and take a back seat for Bo, who was a baseball player, who would come in and do these crazy runs and would run people over. And I'm not exaggerating. Bo Jackson's the best professional football player I've ever seen in my life.
I like that.
lose
Mario,
their
what
mind
about
that I
you?
just
You're
said
going to
that.
go Midwest. You're going to go. Who's your favorite Purdue football player? Is that what you're going to say right now?
Neil Anderson.
No, not Curtis
Brees.
Painter. No, I was alive for Breeze, but I don't really remember him at Purdue. And that's like lost in history. Like people, like I grew up knowing, like thinking for so long that Purdue won the Rose Bowl. They lost that Rose Bowl because they always show the picture of Breeze with the rose in his mouth. I was like, oh, they won. And they didn't win that Rose Bowl. So, like, what a freaking letdown. That's how you know how loser of a university that is that they only show that. Dude, I swear on my life, every, like, kid that grew up in Indiana, you go, did Purdue win the Rose Bowl with Drew Brees? I'm like, I think so, because he had the rose in his mouth. And you're like, yeah, he had the rose in his mouth, but there were freaking losers in the game. I'm going to double check that one real quick, too. So let's check up on that year before I pull that up. I'm like, not like old man. Dave, you're a resource for this. Like, they lost, right?
Dude, I'll be honest with you. It was so not relevant. It wasn't a national championship game. I couldn't even tell you if they won or lost.
It was relevant.
Away from where I'm at.
It was
100% was not relevant.
It was
It's like
relevant.
Arizona State fans always talk about Jake Plummer being in the Rose Bowl. No one gives an S. No one cares.
Yeah, they lost in the Rose Bowl to Washington 34-24. And they were 8-3 that year. So they weren't even like that big of a studs.
Yeah.
Wow.
What a depressing, that was a depressing rundown to go through. That Drew Brees was not really that. All right. Well, he swallowed a goldfish, though, at Purdue. If you want to know a fun story about that, ate a live goldfish.
Well, goldfish aren't known for fighting, but okay.
That's like a legendary story at Purdue.
Is that
If you want to know, yeah, it was at a fraternity.
Say the story. You obviously want to say the story, so say the story.
Yeah, let's hear it.
It's there's a fraternity at Purdue. Their big party is like you get hammered, and then like the freshmen all on their own terms eat a goldfish. And then like Drew Brees did it. And they're like, oh, this guy's sick. And then he was like pretty good on the football field. And that's like pretty much it. It's not that cool of a story. He wasn't that cool of a guy.
So he killed a fish, a
He
live
killed a
fish
fish.
that was living its own life. That's good.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Good for him. Yeah. That's why I didn't go to Purdue, guys. All right. My favorite college football player growing up. You guys probably didn't like this guy, but he was a
Manti Te'o.
stud. What?
Manti Te'o? Big
No,
Notre Dame
dude,
guy?
I told you, I'm not big on Manti Te'o. You're telling me that guy just had. All right, I shouldn't go into that, but like,
You better
you're
not go
telling me-
Brady Quinn. Are you going to say Brady Quinn?
No, but close,
No.
dude. Buddy was a legend.
Jimmy
Good-looking
Clausen.
kid. No, I hated Jimmy Clausen. I wasn't a big Notre Dame fan growing up. Always made fun of him.
I'm not a Georgia fan.
Give me
I
the
still
school.
pick
Give me
Herschel
the
Walker.
school.
I was thinking between two, Johnny Manziel and this other guy went to Auburn.
Cam?
Cam Newton.
Those are two
Cam-
great picks.
Great
Yeah, that
picks.
hurts.
Cam Newton was so raw, and that team so sucked That was not a good football team. Like I remember watching them every week and going like, this is not a talented football team. Number 2 is just simply the best player on the field, and it's just bar none. And like they didn't blow anyone out.
No.
I think Cam Newton's the greatest college football player I've ever seen.
He was unreal. He was unreal. The only one Josh, the only one I wanted to bring up, this would be more on, like, I wonder if it's yours, but like, this is more you. Because I caught it like when I was still young. But like Reggie Bush, I remember it was like, dude, every time he touches the ball, he's God.
Yeah, that's my answer.
Reggie Bush?
Dude, every kid from California, probably all over the country, because when I was at Alabama, we used to talk about the same subject, and they all said Reggie Bush. And I'm a little bit older than you, so he was right when I was like in 4th, 5th grade. Dude, he was the man. Number 5, he was from San Diego, where I'm from. He went to Helix High School down the street. I thought he was the coolest thing ever. And then kids across the nation thought the same thing. So it just makes it even cooler when the guy in your backyard is also cool across the nation. And like you said, whenever he touched the ball, you thought he was going to take it to the house. I love Reggie Bush. And he's a good dude. He gives back to the community. His brother went to high school with me. Big Reggie Bush fan.
Here's the craziest thing, Mario. To say how good Reggie Bush was. Alex Smith, number 1 overall pick in the NFL. Him and Reggie Bush were on the same high school team. Nobody even talked about Alex Smith ever. Am I right, Josh? Like no one even talked about him. He was the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, and no one talked about him in high school because Reggie Bush was that good.
Is that Alex Smith's career? Like he's just in the back, like Mahomes. He was killer for the Chiefs before that. Backseat, high school backseat, college backseat to his brother. Really? Nope, thinking of a different guy. Nope, thinking of the Cars. My bad.
Well, Alex Smith was the placeholder for Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
it's true.
And he got kicked off the 49ers for Colin Kaepernick. He's always the guy that's just holding it down for somebody else.
Yeah.
I'll bring up the Colin Kaepernick thing real quick. I think Colin Kaepernick should have got an opportunity after his political stance. But for him to come out today and tweet at 35 years old, he's working out 5-6 days a week for a job, buddy, give it up. Like nobody's knocking on your door this long after your career when you were not good when you played last. Take politics out of the whole thing. I don't want to talk about that. I just want to talk about Colin Kaepernick as a football player. He was not very good at the end. And for him to say that today, that he's still waiting for an opportunity. Dude, I'm waiting for an opportunity. I work out 5-6 days a week too at the local gym right there. Nobody's knocking on my door either. So I think it's just absolutely insane for him to say that today. My 2 cents. I
agree. Like it should have came a lot earlier, but now you're 35. And also why do you want to put your body through that too? Like at 35, you're good now. You're good.
I think it's not even real. I think he's just saying that to make it seem like people aren't giving him an opportunity. Dude, nobody's coming. And I really don't think he wants to play, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's over. The ship has sailed, and people are just tired of Colin Kaepernick. I mean, literally, they want him to go away. And put it this way, he's a Wisconsin guy, right, Mario? I mean, here you have the Packers.
Is he really?
Jordan Love. Yeah, he's a Wisconsin guy.
I did not know that.
So, yeah, it was always at least the talk when Aaron Rodgers was with the Packers and Kaepernick was with the Niners, that the two guys, if they switched teams, they'd get to play in front of their own hometown. But yeah, you have Kaepernick, who obviously wants to play and has wanted to play for a long time. Who knows how serious he was in the past? But I mean, Jordan Love is terrible. He might arguably be the worst quarterback going in the NFL this year. And there's no talk about the Packers looking at him. Even his hometown is tired of him. Everyone's tired of Colin Kaepernick right now. And at 35, it's like, dude, enough already.
I'm just gonna go out on a limb here. I crap on this fan base a lot, but something tells me that the Packer fan base just wouldn't love Kaepernick. I'm just gonna, if I had to guess, if I had to throw out a limb there, I don't think
there's a fan base in the NFL that wouldn't. Do you?
Yeah, I think it would. I think a good amount would actually.
What team do you think he would be good with? Like what team, if they sign him, would say, okay? I mean, the Atlanta Falcons, basically they need a quarterback.
Falcons would be fine with it. Raiders.
You got to consider cities where they would back him.
Yeah.
Atlanta would back him.
Would back him.
Yeah. Some cities.
I think LA would back him.
Talk about, yeah, maybe.
You think? Yeah. I don't know.
It's just not going to happen, though.
Dude, Niners, he would look. If he went back to the Niners, that would actually be a perfect situation for him. With Shanahan, that would actually be kind of wrong for him.
I just think the ship has sailed. Honestly, I do. And
Can we
I mean,
circle
I'm
back
not
to
going
this
to get
one thing?
political with it, but I used to go in these NFL locker rooms during this whole time when it was, a lot of guys were taking knees. There are guys on the Chargers who were taking knees, and I felt bad for a lot of these players because you go in the locker room and literally these guys would be in tears, and they would say that the fan base doesn't understand why we're taking a knee, and their message that they were trying to get out, people didn't want to hear. They didn't want to listen. They just took it as a disrespect when it was actually a Navy SEAL that told Kaepernick to take a knee. He literally listened to people in the military tell him to go this route, and it was the end of his career.
Yep. Mario, you got one more thing?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that Cam Newton came back and beat Bama 28-27.
I know.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind you guys of that.
Yeah,
and
I
then
remember.
It was he dominated him, and then he won the national championship.
Yeah,
in case you guys forgot.
At the Rose Bowl against Oregon, right? Was it Oregon?
And suddenly the Rose Bowl mattered, Dave.
It was a national championship game. It wasn't 8-3. An 8-3 team with the guy with the rose in his mouth eating goldfish. No one gives a ass.
Dude, the Rose Bowl's the best bowl. Everyone loves the Rose Bowl.
It is when it counts, when it's Vince Young and Matt Leinart.
Yeah.
Not Drew Brees and some other goofball who's 7-4.
Do you know how many receivers that Cam Newton threw to made it in the NFL?
That's a great question.
I'm gonna go 0 because it makes Cam Newton look better.
When I was doing research, I had one that would put in a preseason game. That's it. So I'm gonna just flat out say 0.
That's 0.
Yeah. Then remember that tight end that they had? I don't know how to say his full name, but I just remember calling him Lutz.
Oh yeah.
He died.
Did he?
Yeah. Rest in peace, man. I remember when it happened, but I forgot about that. But he was a beast.
Dude, rest in peace to Ryan Mallett. I love watching him play when he's at Arkansas. It's sad.
Dude, rest in peace. He's a great guy. Great football player.
Great guy. You know.
Yeah. Seemed nice. All right. So is it weird? I don't even want to do that. This is weird.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's do it. This is weird. This has been weird.
Yeah. Well, this is this weird. Good play. Did you guys read the rundown?
Yes. Go ahead.
Dave did. All right. So, like I said, Cam Newton came back, beat the Crimson Tide in the Iron Bowl. That sucked for you guys.
Yeah,
so is it weird that I don't understand why people so I'm gonna pick a story. So when Mac Miller passed away, I love Mac Miller, was one of my favorite artists. He was probably pretty evident with the way I look that no crap. I liked Mac Miller, but I liked him a lot. And when he passed away, I was like, damn, that sucks. And I got 5 text messages from people in my family going are you okay? And I was like, yeah, pretty sure. Why, did something happen? And they're like, no, we just wanted to check in on you. I go, yeah, I'm good. My cousin came over. She was, I want to make sure you're okay. And I'm like, yeah, did I miss a family meeting? I was thinking in my sitting here, I'm like, did grandma bite it? Did grandpa fall? Did Auntie Diane bite the dust? Who kind of car crash that? I was just going through it, and they're like, "Oh, Mac Miller died," and I go,
"Is Aunt June okay?"
Yeah, is June okay? And they're like June texted me, called me a hunk. I was like, "She's fine," and then they're like, "Yeah, Mac Miller died," and they're like, "Mac Miller died." That's why they're checking on you. I'm like, I know. That's great, but I just don't get that. You don't know them. You have no personal experience with them. I just never understood that. And they're like, and then there's, I forget. When Michael Jackson died, I remember my cousin cried, and I was like, I'm not understanding this. Why are you crying? You have no idea who this guy is. It was always weird to me. Always weird to me. I never understood that.
I got 2 things on this.
You want to go first?
One,
go first.
If you want to go first, go ahead. I got 2 things to say about this too, though. Go ahead.
Okay. One thing I'll tell you real quick. Josh's younger brother, obviously, he was devastated when Mac Miller died. I was looking at him the whole day. He was not okay. He was really upset with me for not understanding how much he appreciated him. What I started to realize is when you're an artist, whether it's music, movies, an actual artist, that paints or whatever, you live forever. And, you create and you live forever. You could pull Mac Miller up stuff today. And I think when you're an athlete, you kind of live forever in our minds. I mean, I was just talking about Herschel Walker, and I watched Herschel Walker when I was, 8 years old, and I wanted his jersey, that kind of deal. I know Josh is going to say the same one I'm saying, so I'll save it. But I understand that when people pass away, why you feel that way. They connected with them. So your relative who was into Michael Jackson and cried, Michael Jackson's an artist. That at some point that was important to them in their lives. And so I understand that. Here's a weird one. The first one that ever affected me, and I wasn't like a kid that watched a ton of this show, but I remember my sister watching. But I'm a fan of people that are good guys who try and make the world better. And then when they die, you go, man, the world got a little bit worse because that guy's not here anymore. It was Mr. Rogers. When Mr. Rogers died, I was like, this guy
Really?
dedicated his whole life. Yeah, I was like, boy, it kind of sucks. The guy literally dedicated his whole life to trying to make the world a better place. And then he wasn't there. And I was like, wow, that one kind of bothered me. That was the first one. Josh and I are going to share the same one, I know, as far as like it still hurts today. Like we still send each other stuff on a regular basis about this person on how much it affects our lives and how much we miss that he's just not even on the planet. We aren't, friends with him or would see him on a regular basis. But Josh, I'll go ahead. I'll let you go. You go ahead and pull the curtain back.
Yeah. So like I said, I have two things to say. First off, Dave's 100% right. People think artists are talking to them a lot of times when they're musicians. They help them get through a time in their life by listening to their song or watching their movie. But the other two things I was going to say was my brother passed away from the same exact thing that Mac Miller passed away from a few months later. So that was very, very weird. Something about when people talk about my brother, and he's not famous, he wasn't famous, but when people talk about celebrities or people that pass away as perfect people, oh my God, he was so great. Well, you didn't talk about him like that when he was alive. So why would you lie to yourself and say, all these things once they're dead? If you wouldn't say it to them when they're alive, why say it about them when they're dead? And that drives me crazy when people say, Nipsey Hussle, I love Nipsey. Like, dude, you weren't on Nipsey Hussle like that when he was here. So like, why are you on him now when he's dead? I just never understood that. But it's Kobe Bryant, obviously, is the one he's talking about. Love Kobe as a kid. He's my favorite player of all time. I remember it like yesterday. I was upstairs. I was with my parents at the time. And, you see the news about the helicopter and Kobe. I said to my dad, he's downstairs, dude, I think Kobe died. He goes, what? And you think of Kobe Bryant as a superhero. He can't die. And then we look into the story. He's dead. And I felt that pit in my stomach, like somebody in my family died, because I felt like I knew Kobe on that level because I watched him as a kid until now. Like I love Kobe, and I never met Kobe, but to me, I knew Kobe, and I left for work and I left the front door wide open because I was such in a daze. And to this day, man, it still really bothers me that Kobe's not here because I think he had so much more to give. And I never thought somebody like that could die.
Here's something strange about the Kobe deal. Number one is I did know Kobe because I was covering the Lakers at the time. I didn't know Kobe like we called each other, but I covered the Lakers when Kobe came into the league. I was the youngest guy in the media, so Kobe would talk to me a lot, when he'd come in, and we would talk about a lot of things. Josh's mom's Italian, and we would talk about Italy, and Kobe spoke fluent Italian, and we talk about stuff all the time. I'd go, this guy's the smartest guy on the team. He was fascinating, and he was always determined. When I used to cover the Lakers and I'd get there at 2:00 in the afternoon, the only two people that were there besides me would be Chick Hearn, the broadcaster for the Lakers, and Kobe Bryant. And Kobe was there working at 2 in the afternoon, and man, over and over again. And even though he knew the offense wasn't going to run through him first, it was going to go through Shaq, Kobe was there. So the day that he died, I was actually in Los Angeles the night before, spent the night in a hotel. And I remember we jumped on the freeway, my wife and I, and it was so foggy outside. And I was like, we can't drive in this. I go, if it does not clear up one exit down the freeway, we're just going to go back to the hotel. And we were able to make it all the way back down to San Diego, and started talking to Josh. And that's when you said to me, I think Kobe just died. And I couldn't believe that a helicopter went up in that weather. I could not see 500 feet below wherever he was. I can't imagine that somebody took to air in those situations. It's that for Mario, who's not in Southern California, we don't get weather like that. Like it doesn't get like that on a regular basis. To be that way on a Sunday morning was very unique. I can't imagine to say it's going to be okay to take a helicopter up in this.
I think the sad part of that too is I've still said, but TMZ reported it before the family even know.
Yeah.
Which was still crazy to me to this day. Because I remember when that TMZ report popped up, I'm like, dude, no shot, that's true.
Yeah.
And then slowly it started coming out. I'm like, oh, geez.
And the cops showing the pictures at the bar or whatever of Kobe's carcass. The whole thing was bad.
Ridiculous.
Bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was a bad.
terrible.
Is this weird?
No, it's not.
That's
Not
a good
because
topic.
I think it's interesting. I think a lot of people probably think like you, Mario, who go, what are you so upset about? But I realize, when you're an artist, you live forever, and that's what, if you're a songwriter or you're a musician, it's true. I mean, Kurt Cobain and Nirvana, people still talk about him. It was over 30 years ago,
Yeah.
Sad, especially when there are kids involved that are left behind, is always extremely sad too. You got anything else, Mario, to cheer us up?
Yeah, I was about to say, I didn't think that took a pretty dark route. And that's
Oh, it
all my
was.
fault, so
It was.
favorite July 4th tradition, if you guys have any.
Go to the beach.
To
Can't
the
beat that.
beach.
Yeah, you got to
That's
go to the
fair.
beach.
I'm Midwest, so it's a lake. You're in the Midwest now, Josh. You gotta get used to it. It's a lake now.
Go to the lake. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the same.
I got an
Yeah.
interesting July 4th coming
Right.
up for me this time around, Mario. Okay. Usually I spend July 4th in San Diego. A friend of mine has a boat. We was go on his boat and watch the fireworks from all over the place. But this 4th of July, I'm actually headed to Nashville to see Josh. And then my plane leaving Nashville takes off like at 9:00 at night. So the fireworks go off all around Nashville at 9:00 at night. When that plane takes off, it's going to be like being in the Gulf War. It's going to look like
Yeah.
people are shooting at us. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be a crazy 4th of July coming up.
Why
Yeah.
are you leaving then? On
Dude,
4th
I
of
don't
July?
control the airline, dude. That's just when they told me to get on the plane. That's it.
That's
it.
fair.
It's the only time I could
That's
get
fair.
out. It wasn't the plan. They changed, like everyone else, they changed my flight 80 times already. And right now they told me this is when the only flight I can get out is that time. So, but it's going to be weird being above, like watching the fireworks go off as we're taking off. It's going to be a little bit different. So there you go.
Let one out on the airplane.
Don't pull a Jason Pierre-Paul. Everybody be safe out there. All right.
Yeah.
Let's all
Good
come back
advice.
to the next show with
Yeah.
10 fingers. That's the advice we're going to leave you with.
1,
All
2,
right.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
All right.
baby.
All right. Want me to give you the old joke, Mario? What's the hold on, there you go. What's this?
Rock on.
No, it's the shop teacher ordering 4 more beers. There you go.
Wait, I don't know if I got that one. That might want to
Yeah,
right over my
the shop
head.
teacher. You ever have wood shop in high school? Where they offer it in school?
I mean,
The
dude,
guy-
this isn't Saved by the Bell.
That's losing 2 fingers because you cut your fingers off. That was
Wait,
it
Josh,
there.
did you have woodshop class?
No, he
No,
didn't.
dude.
I did. When I lived in Tennessee, we had it.
I was about to say, yeah, I didn't have that.
Do you have driver's ed?
Yeah, it wasn't in school, but we had that.
I had
I
that in
didn't
school.
get that.
We had boating school in school.
Like SpongeBob?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I swear to God, because our side of the city, we grew up on the lake, so you had to get your boating license, and I didn't pay attention to that at all. And I slept every single class, and I failed the living hell out of it. I got the lowest score, and the teacher called me in, and he goes, "Dude, I know your family. I've seen you on the lake. I've seen you drive a jet ski. I'm forcing a pass, but I can't believe you're this dumb." Was his exact words to me. And I just was like, "That's my bad, Ray." I was like, "I'll get him next time."
But you guys didn't have driver's ed, but you had to take boating classes?
You had to take boating classes, and it was like boating state, dude. Because like a July 4th weekend, it is scary out there because you have a lot of dumb
Guys who didn't pay
people.
attention in class?
Yeah,
on
you have those
boats, yeah.
guys who didn't know to stay on the go right the whole time and go in a
A
circle.
lot of bad drivers out there.
A lot of bad drivers out there. So you do have that, and they just taught you other stuff too, like life jacket stuff, like a bunch of random crap, how to start a boat and stuff like that, jet ski, and you got the whole rundown. And they scared you with stories and stuff because whatever. But yeah, we did that. It was a good time. I got good sleep.
There you go.
Went right against
By the way,
wall.
this is my
Stuck
favorite
through.
part of the show. I know it's nothing to do with football, but it's my favorite part of the show. All right. We'll come back for another one. We'll be ready to go. We got a list of guests that are coming up that are unbelievable that we're really excited about as well. So a lot coming up on the Bolt City podcast leading into training camp. We're really excited about it. Again, want to thank Daniel Wade for joining us as well. That was really cool. Guys, none of us had the guts to ask him if people call you D Wade. Nobody tried that line on him. But,
Oh, I forgot.
I knew it the whole time, but I wasn't going to do it because I was afraid it'd piss him off. So we didn't do it.
Oh,
Call him D Wade.
I forgot when we were talking about favorite college football players. I was gonna say Josh Pele. That was
that's
another thing I
nice.
was gonna say.
Yeah, that's nice.
That'd been cool.
Put him in the
There you
Raptors. Were you ever in a
There you
video game? Last question. No, you probably missed it. Did you?
I missed it. Yeah, I
Damn.
missed it. I know.
Yeah,
Damn.
that O'Bannon messed it up for everybody.
I know. Damn.
All right, we're going to get on out of here. For Josh Pele, Mauro Heron, I'm Dave Pele. Again, thanks for watching and listening, of course, on YouTube. But, of course, thanks to Odyssey for putting together the Bolt City podcast. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next time.